Caddishass College Humanities 2, as we finish up the week with television. What is blowing in that? What is that? See that? What is that? Something is blowing behind me. It's really bothering me. Anyway, I don't care. I'm going to keep going. What is this thing going across my screen here? Oh, I see. I see. A piece of lint. Okay. Um, this is the end, folks. We're at the end of the course. It's 120 degrees outside. It's an inferno. Um, hope you're staying well in these trying climate times. And hope you're getting your papers done and everything else. Have some patience on the ending for the papers because there's a lot of papers. There's a lot of you, and it will take me several days to get everything graded. So don't be asking about the final grades. I'll get them in. I usually have a week. That's usually the deadline, and I'll have them in by then. Anyway, you guys look at chapter 13 at all? Or if you've given it up and just gone out to the lake, I don't blame you. Please hand in everything. Get it in right now. Your journals, hand them in today. I don't care. If you made it this far, I trust you. The quicker you hand them in, the quicker I can grade them. So it's almost the end. I'm going to do one final little speech later on that you don't have to watch if you don't want to, although it is kind of brilliant. But today I want to try to finish this television thing off. We didn't have much time on television, and it's a huge topic. I wish we could have taken at least 2 weeks on it, but not to be. I missed. If you look through the book, there's stuff I wanted to do, just not possible in 7 weeks. There's photography and dance and and other things that y'all might be interested in, but in architecture also. We couldn't get to it, not in 7 weeks. I like to try to spend a week on each topic, so at least you get some substance out of it. That's my goal. Hopefully you did. Um, so television, why does it matter? In in the 60s and 70s, people of my generation started mocking television because it was became really kind of silly. It was situation comedies like I Dream of Jeannie and Gilligan's Island, and you're going to college and you're studying uh, the great philosophers, or you're reading Ulysses, and you look at Gilligan's Island, you go, "What has happened to our culture?" And so it was ridiculed for many years. The 70s, things started changing a little because some revolutionary producers like Norman Lear popped up and did All in the Family, which was a groundbreaker about a redneck, prejudiced blue collar guy living out there in Queens, played by Carol O'Connor. Enough of it. He was essentially his son-in-law was a hippie, dippy, intellectual college student, and they were always going at it with opposing philosophies. But Archie Bunker, which is his name, he did learn at the end of the day, pardon me, to be more tolerant towards others. Others not as white as he is, not as privileged as he was, others that might have a different way of looking at patriotism. What is patriotism? Everybody doesn't have the same thing. Waving the flag doesn't mean you're a patriot. Some people are quiet about it and they go about their lives without having a NRA sticker on their truck and waving the flag, which is really a bravado that's really taken over since our beloved golfer president took over 8 years ago, whenever it was. Uh, but don't let it fool you. Don't be scammed into anything. Think for yourself and read. Keep reading. And I don't mean just listening to news outlets or TikTok. I'm talking about read the classics, the literature, plays, what we've done all through this class. If I can instill anything in you guys at all, just look at the classic literature, plays, novels, paintings. That's who we are, and it's how we got here. We didn't get here by putting slogans on the back of our pickup trucks and waving our flags. Every country's got a flag, and they're all proud of their countries. Um, there are other ways to doing it, working quietly, not being a jerk or macho reactionary against things you might not understand, like homosexuality or trans people, Mexicans coming over the border. We're all in this thing together, all of us. Sorry about that. We're in here together. And so we've got to work together and live together and learn together. And the more we learn, the more knowledge we have. Knowledge is power. Ignorance is not bliss, it's ignorance. And don't, so the more you learn, the more gather information, the more books you read, the more music you listen to, movies you go to, paintings you look at in museums or online, wherever you guys look at paintings, the richer your life will be and the more understanding for the human condition you will have. And that's what humanity is all about. Understanding why we are, where we are, and how we got here. Television was a phenomenon that started as simply an entertainment and developed into a powerful, powerful medium that really has overtaken everything. We are television now. Whether you have HBO Max or Netflix and you're watching movies, but you're watching it on a device called a television or big screen, whatever you want to call it, it's in your house. You can be there in your comfortable clothes with your beer and popcorn and not have to leave the house. And so that's what home entertainment was all about. And it's gotten a lot better. It has. We can have nice sound bars to make it sound cool. You can watch a big budgeted movie, Star Wars or Road Warrior, and it looks pretty good on those flat screens TVs in our homes. We're not missing that much by not going to the movies, which is a shame because the culture of movie going is really diminished. Uh, going Not going back to work, not going back to the office. We're seeing other ways of functioning in this world. We don't really need that. We could do it without it. And so we substitute it. We can work from home. That's what I'm doing. That's what you're doing, taking this class from home. We learn to adapt in changing times. And television has changed leaps and bounds from what it was in Gilligan's Island days or Bewitched or Beverly Hillbillies, which were all fun, enjoyable shows. A couple shows that revolutionized television when the first cable access channel came out, HBO, which is a new deal. Nobody had it. Very few people got it, and there was a couple series on there that changed the landscape, not only of cable TV and the possibility of making a huge difference in the world as an artistic statement, a social statement of who we are, why we are, how we got here. Started with series like The Sopranos. Never seen anything like this before. We've seen The Godfathers, Goodfellas. We've seen a lot of mobster movies, but we've never seen a mobster series that went deeper and showed us probably as close to how it really is or was with regular families eating at dinner and the kids having their problems. It's not all about knocking people off and throwing them in the river. In fact, they don't want to do that because they don't want to draw attention to themselves. They want to make money. And they make money all sorts of different criminal ways. It's all about making the American dream come true, but it's got twisted along the way. It got twisted with ancient histories of Italy coming to this country and establishing these families, Costa Nostra, and it's been in our culture for maybe 200 years. Um, and there's Sopranos is showing us the day-to-day life of these guys and the women and their children, and it opened up a whole new world to us. Um, they have issues and problems like everybody else, but at the end of the day, they could either kill somebody or be killed themselves. So they live with that every day. Sopranos was a revolution, plain and simple. Other series like The Wire was another revolutionary series about Baltimore Police Department, and it was on for 5 years. It was never as popular as Sopranos, but it was showed us what both sides of the drug dealing issue look like. The drug dealers have always been labeled super bad guys or bad women, and this showed that it's not necessarily a bad against good, but it's a class warfare. It's a privileged class of white people born into privilege and African Americans not born into that privilege. And how do they get a step up? How do they function in the world that is against them, that doesn't give them the same opportunities as a white skinned person? And so they turn to drug dealing. And when you're 12 years old and some drug dealer says to you, stand on that corner out there and I'll give you $400 a week. That's big money. Who would turn that down? Nobody. That's who. And then they work their way up. And after they stand on that corner until they're 18, they might have to make a delivery or two, keep working their way up. And then now they're in. Drugs and the dealing of illegal drugs are a social contract with this class of people that didn't have the opportunities that so many white people did. This is how they lived, how they prospered, how they bought houses and cars. When you look down at it and say, oh, they're all bad, they're all evil, you're looking at it the wrong way. Watch The Wire. Like The Sopranos, there was good mob bosses and there was bad ones, and there's some of the mob people are not violent and others are. Well, same thing in the drug world of The Wire. We saw both sides and we had sympathy, empathy for both sides. So you're watching the whole picture, the truth of the matter. And this is television, folks, episodic television. The Wire was on for 5 years. I think The Sopranos on about 6 years. So you followed these exploits. You got to know these people, the drug dealers and the cops busting the drug dealers. You got to know everybody. You saw their flaws, what made them tick, how they weren't perfect. The cops aren't saints, and the drug dealers all aren't monsters. Some of the cops are monsters, and some of the drug dealers are monsters, just like every other aspect of life. And The Wire showed that in a dying city, Baltimore, which is still considered on the ropes when it comes to division of African American and white Americans. Uh, there was other shows that were groundbreaking during that time, like 6 Feet Under, about about morticians and the dead people they had to deal with every day. It's a brilliant, brilliant series, but at least nobody was getting whacked. But there was a lot of drama there in that mortuary that it all centered around a family of morticians, and there were kids and the kids who wanted it, the kids who didn't want anything to do with it. And they took care of the dead. Our dead have to be taken care of somehow. These people took care of them. It was a dark, dark black comedy. Black meaning it wasn't light. It's not for everybody's taste. It's like the movie Fargo was a dark comedy. They call them black comedies because the humor is pretty dark, but it's meaningful. It's not Gilligan's Island by a long shot, but it's can be funnier than hell. If you ever watch the series Twin Peaks, there's a lot of humor in it, and there's murder, drug dealing, mayhem, incest, and humor. Anyway, and that's rare. So these shows were revolutionary in changing how we view television, what we do with our time at night. We're not going to the movies now. We're watching HBO because these series were so deep and we could go far with those characters. And then later on, the British took over so much of that Downton Abbey and all the upstairs, downstairs. We became fascinated with the royal family in this country. We can't get enough of these series. There's a bunch of them out there, and they go on and on and on about wealthy people in England 100 years ago and how they lived. We're fascinated by it. And we watch, and that's all a class system. The wealthy living upstairs, the maids and butlers are living downstairs. How do they do it? Well, they show how they did it, and that's what Great Britain is based on. That's why when the Beatles came out, and they kind of made fun of all that. Things started changing. A movie like A Hard Day's Night was mocking the old class system of England, which had been in place for hundreds of years. So television has a way of knocking down these barriers and waking us up, and we also get involved in the characters because we like it. We have favorite characters. We want to watch what's going on. I'm watching about 3 series right now. I'm totally fascinated with them. Only Murder in the Building comes out once a week. It's on Hulu. Steve Martin Short, and it's charming and fascinating and engaging. I can't wait for the next episode. I watched the series last year. I just adored. I could have made it. I dare you guys to watch it. It's called Loudermilk. I think it's on Netflix, about a guy very much like myself, a curmudgeon know-it-all, who's he's a music critic. He's a music critic and he hates everything. And it's a hilarious deadpan series, meaning the humor is deadpan. And but this guy's human and he's reaching. He wants to be loved like everybody else. And it's a brilliant show. It was only on, I think it was on 4 years. With this series, then he went on to do Extras, another brilliant series. He does one brilliant series after another. This Afterlife has been on 3 years. Newspaper in his hometown in England, not London, not some big happening. Left alone, and he's lost the will to live. Yes, it's called Afterlife. And it's a comedy, folks, but it's a dark one. He is constantly wanting to commit suicide. Taking care of the dog really helps him get back to the living. And it's an important thing. So see you next time. One more lecture talking about your future.